The Honorable Joel Senyonyi, Leader of Opposition in Parliament, thank you so much for having honored our invitation. A warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Patrick. It's always a delight to be here. I always have fond memories of, especially this show. I hosted it a few times, then I got to produce it.
Oh yes, you're my producer at one point.
I was your boss at some point. Now I'm here, I have to behave myself. But it's always a delight to be here.
It was always a joy. Working with you was always a joy. And yeah, this is like you're back at your alma mater, you know.
Feel very comfortable. I hope the questions will be comforting too, but don't worry. Feel free to ask anything.
Yes, as Leader of Opposition, Joel, it's almost 5 years since Noop took the mantle to be the Leader of Opposition. I just want really to walk with you the journey in the last almost 5 years, so that we can try to take stock on how this has been like. Because when you came on board as Noop, there was a lot of promise, there was a lot of dynamism, there was a lot of energy. How has the journey been?
It's been a tough journey, expectedly. On 22nd July 2020, that's when we unveiled this party and its new leadership to the country. And we had about 2 months to the nomination. And so there were just so many moving pieces at the time. And yet we had to move too. It's just like building a plane when it's mid-air already. It's taken off and then you have got to add the wing, you've got to patch this up and so on because it's got to move. And so that's what happened. We took the plunge. It's been, like I've said, a bittersweet experience. Sweet because God has enabled us to achieve some exploits. It's had its bitters because, oh my goodness, the rough and tumble has been real. We have lost people. We have many who are still incarcerated to date. Many are still nursing injuries and so on. We have had everything thrown at us, including the kitchen sink. But we thank God we are still here.
You know, when you came around as Noop, before that as People Power, Joel, to tell you the truth, Kampala witnessed young men walking with that exaggerated swag. that here are new kids on the block coming. But to tell you the truth, that swag has decimated, has evaporated.
So? What makes you say that?
I say this, I was then as somebody who would watch, somebody who would spectate. I am still in the same position, I'm still looking at you. I see a difference in what I see.
Really? Tell me, what do you see?
The lack of dynamism, the lack of energy, the lack of that organizational capabilities that you had, the hope that you had built. You're still there, yes. You still have the numbers, yes. But the energy has evaporated.
I don't think so. I don't know which prism you see things through.
I've not changed the prism.
The excitement is a lot more. You know, 2 months to the previous election, when we unveiled, there was lots of things happening. We are headed into an election. Our party headquarters have been extremely busy, awash with activities, buzzing all over the place. That to me sounds like energy. Everybody and anybody coming and saying, I want to run under the NUP flag. You people have been reporting about this. I hope when you're home you watch your news, because me when I turn on the NTV news. Even when I've not been at our party headquarters, and then I see the masses of people who flock our party headquarters. That to me speaks energy, it speaks enthusiasm, it speaks people saying, yes, we still trust these guys, and so we want to connect with them. Well, that might be a small facet thereof. You talked about organizational capabilities. I don't know what you even mean by that, because we now are a lot more organized than we were 5 years ago heading into an election. We've got systems in place, we've got leaders at different levels. At that time we hardly had leaders. We were, groping in the dark to a great extent. But now we have got leaders at various levels. Now we are in the room. And not just being talked about, but we are setting many agendas.
Honorable Senyonyi, do you find it a little bit difficult that then you were contenders, people were just going to try you, you had not been given any office, now you're leader of opposition, you have members of parliament, you have commissioners in parliament, that, to run just as a candidate and to actually run an office are two different things. Has the office changed you?
Me? You mean me, Joel, the
you as
individual?
You as the leaders?
I need to be sure I understand your question. Are you asking that personally as Joel Senyonyi? Because you asked, has the office changed me? Which
as
office?
The office
of the opposition?
that you hold, yes.
Well, a lot changes, obviously. A lot changes. The responsibilities get to be a lot more. When I had just gotten into Parliament as a member of Parliament, I was tasked to chair a committee, COSASE. By God's grace, we did the work that we were able to do. And all of a sudden now, because as COSASE head, you're leading a team of, a couple of members of Parliament, of a committee that you chair. Now I lead an entire side of Parliament. So the responsibilities are a lot more. The challenge is a lot more. Some people thought, will he manage this? Well, God has enabled me to do what I ought to do. I'll not sit here and say whether it be as an individual or as a political party, we have hit every milestone we would want to hit, that we have done all that we set out to achieve, but there's quite a bit of things that we have been able to do, quite a lot of shaking that we've been able to do. And that's why you see the panic all over the place. That's why you see the state throwing everything at us, including the kitchen sink. It's because of the pressure that we are exerting. Are we exerting a lot more pressure, enough pressure? We need to exert a lot more.
When NUP or People Power came around, you could see even what we called the wave that was sweeping across Uganda and sweeping across Busoga and other parts of Uganda. Joel, do you speak with certainty tonight that that kind of wave, that kind of energy can even go beyond what you were able to capture in 2021?
And see, that's the thing. So at the time, people called us a wave that was going to dissipate. Yeah? Some gave us a month, some 2, some 6, some a year, and they thought we would dissipate, really. But they obviously were wrong, and they realized as such. They underestimated us. And it's good, by the way, when people underestimate you, because that gives you a chance to prove them wrong. That gives you leg room to operate. Yeah, and be able to do what you ought to do, and eventually they've got egg on their faces.
I don't think from where we sit, we underestimated you.
Many people did.
We actually saw, like at the beginning, that we saw a lot of energy, I saw a lot of dynamism. I began here telling you that there was a lot of energy, a lot of dynamism, a lot of how you're organizing yourself.
Maybe you had your eyes open.
And there was a lot of promise. But whether you were able to sustain that as of today, Joel, that's a debatable issue.
Yeah, and that's why we are here to debate it. But look, when you say that, yes, there was a lot of optimism from many people, and that's why they embraced us. But there were also the naysayers. There were people who were saying, who are these guys? Because look, Patrick, Honorable Kyagulanyi, my party leader, had been a musician, got into Parliament. 1 year down the road, he's now leading a political movement. I came from here, had been in the media at the time for 14 years. By the time I left, other people, Lewis Rubongoya had been teaching, other people in their law firms and so on. We did not have much political experience. Now that consumed some people who, there are people who, I don't know, have an exaggerated sense of self-worth. They thought, but who are these young men? They don't have experience in politics or leadership. They are young and they think they can lead us, but eventually some did have to eat humble pie, connected with us and so on. And those who underestimated us, they now see that these young people whom we underestimated, they've kept this together, they keep pressing on. And look, I'm not going to sit here and gloat and say we have hit all that we hope to. We keep pressing on every step of the way.
But you see, I don't think there was an underestimation of what you could do. In fact, I go back to the words they said. I saw a lot of promise in you, and a lot of energy, and a lot of dynamism.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did.
Because you knew, we worked together. Yeah. So while other people were underestimating Joel, I think for you sat in your corner and you're saying, they have no idea. I've worked with that. I'm just assuming. Yeah, I don't know. So you're saying you didn't underestimate us, perhaps because you knew the individuals, yeah? But many people did. And again, that's okay. But so look, then you get to prove them otherwise.
But Joel, the Achilles heel actually comes right from within yourselves. Because then we begin to see squabbles internally from NUP. This entity that we had thought was so robust, was watertight, and then you begin fighting amongst yourselves. In fact, tearing each other when the country is watching your data leading in the public. What was that about?
Well, we are a public entity. When issues do arise, they'll be out there in the public. But then again, I am glad we are not slitting each other's throats. our colleagues in the NRM, you've been seeing their primaries. People literally slitting each other's throats using machetes. People have died. I've seen the number of guns in our communities. I'm dumbfounded. I did not think that there's such a number of firearms, being held. Of course, people can get licenses and so on.
Joel, NRM will tell us.
Let me answer the question you asked me.
NRM will tell their story.
Well, that story is being lived in our communities. People are dying and they are known to people and that kind of thing. Yeah, everybody's seeing that. So the point I'm making, while you're saying we're tearing each other apart, yes, that friction does arise. But I'm glad he didn't get to the point of people getting to each other's throats.
So couldn't you have been able to disagree, Joel, in a manner that didn't have to show you in a bad light? You don't have to tear yourselves. You don't have to wash your dirty linen in public. For example, you could have been gentlemen, I disagree, but move on better. I want to bring in the example of the man you replaced. That disagreement was ugly.
Yeah, but it did happen, and we dealt with it, and we have moved, Patrick. We have moved.
Your moving must have left us an ugly scar, and which makes you look bad, because you just don't move. But when you move, well, the man you replace also moves and starts his other faction, and that eats in your core base.
Does it?
It does.
That's okay. Let him move as we move. I don't see how that becomes an issue.
It does, because it's about politics, a game of numbers. So if some people have moved away from you, that becomes a concern to you as a leader of opposition. You'd rather be better when everybody is on board, because now you'll find yourselves, you'll have to, before you even think about the sitting government or the sitting NRM party, you have some former colleagues to deal with first. That's a hurdle.
But Patrick, in the recent past, again through our processes and so on, we have had sitting members of parliament joining us as a political party. Well, you think we are slowing down, we are moving. We have had former members of parliament, a plethora of them, joining us. I'm talking about this season, I'm not talking about back then. So when I say we have moved, yes, we have.
Yeah, but when people join you, then others also leave. The Honorable Matthias Mpuga, Dr. Bwanika, Mr. Kagabo, Bashir Kazibwe. People move out of what? Of NUP. And these are also formidable leaders, Joel, that you'd rather have them in your group and just add on other people to come and join.
I see. You're trying to drag me into that debate.
I'm not. I'm only pointing out the realities, Joel.
Don't want to sit here and spend, plenty full of our time on that. The thing is, our political party is not some kind of prison. People get in, people get out. Every political party should be that way. Yeah. As I speak today, we are receiving people, including sitting leaders, members of parliament, mayors, councillors from different political parties who are joining us. And so you keep moving. That's just what it is.
So very soon you'll be having, okay, you have primaries? How are you going to handle your primaries?
We have got a constitution that we are working with. A couple of months back, maybe 2 or so years ago, we did hold a delegates conference. And we said that this constitution that we inherited, the 2004 constitution, needs to be bettered. It needs to match with the times and our democratic aspirations. Because at the time, the people that formed the party, yes, of course, they did have their aspirations at the time and so on, but it was 2004, that's 21 years ago. But we thought for our aspirations and the times, let's try and tie a couple of loose ends, make it a lot more inclusive, a lot more democratic, and so on. So we hold a delegates conference and we amended our constitution, filing it with the Electoral Commission. Some people said, no, you will not change it. Of course, I think the plan was to derail us so that we, are hamstrung and so we cannot move. So the Electoral Commission said, well, we cannot gazette your constitution because there is this matter and so on. So we said, okay, as the ping pong goes on, let's work with the party constitution that we do have. It's what we inherited. Is it awesome? No. That's why we sat as a delegates conference and amended it. And we have, up until today, waited for the Electoral Commission to eventually gazette it. When it does happen, we'll see. But we said, let's keep moving. And so That constitution provides for a modus operandi, how leaders get to be gotten to, flag bearers, and all of that. And like I've said, is it awesome? No. That's why we said, let's amend it. Yes, we got those predicaments along the way, but we are moving.
So that constitution that has a modus operandi, how democratic is that modus operandi?
Hey man, have you been listening?
Yes.
Because I've told you that that constitution we inherited,
I just want to know.
We wanted it to match with our democratic aspirations.
Honorable Senyonyi, I want to know how NUP will pick their flag bearers.
Okay, so what you're asking is how we'll do it, because what you're asking, is it a very democratic process? And that's why I told you, that's why we amended it. But now that you ask how we are going to do that, we have got an election management committee, and it gets to interact with the different people that are vying for positions, and then eventually sends teams in the field that they'll come to Nakawa West, where I come from, move around different places, trading centers, border stages, in the markets, in the gardens where they are, and so on and so forth, connecting with people and asking them, who do you believe is suited to represent you? And the people get to speak. And they did speak even in the run-up to the last election. I'll give you examples. You know, one of the very contentious flags at the time was the one for the Honorable Muhammad Segirinya. While there were some voices saying, but this guy, he doesn't speak very good English, he's not very highly educated, and so on and so forth, does he really deserve to be a member of parliament? The people in Kawempe North at the time said, that's the leader we want. We don't care that he doesn't speak very good English. We don't care that he doesn't have master's, PhD, I don't know what kind of education you're looking for. That's the leader we want. So the people power on ground spoke. And by the way, he surprised many people. He served to the surprise of many people, yeah? Unfortunately,
he was a good man.
Because of all the pressure that was exerted on him by the state and so on, the man's life was cut short. But yes, the people on ground spoke, and he had to carry the flag. And that's the story of many others.
Isn't that, Joel, the act of going to the field and sending a team to look at who is suitable to represent the people, subject to abuse, or maybe leave a bitter taste in the mouth of many voters?
But what isn't subject to abuse? You people have been showing us the NRM primaries. Every day somebody was being killed. Blood was being spilled. You know, so anything is subject to abuse if you don't do it right.
Because even in 2020, there were serious allegations that the flag was there for sale. That allegation remained. So to avoid those allegations to come again, even grow bigger, you could have done it differently. You don't have to go and start hand-picking, and that becomes a selection instead of an election.
Again, like I've told you, when we start to amend our constitution, we wanted to move in that direction. We're cognizant of the fact that our constitution needs to match our democratic aspirations. That's why we amended it, so we could have such processes. But that was catapulted. Were we supposed to fold our hands and sit and say, well,
assuming it was the NRM party that is handpicking individuals to give them a flag, Joel, NUP in Kabuli would go gaga, would just be up in the air with qualified criticism of such an act.
Well, even now they are lining up, but we are criticizing, especially the loss of life. I don't care about the drama that gets to happen in their political party, but loss of life is a very critical thing. You know, somebody has got to be held responsible for that. And by the way, we are yet to see that happening. And by the way, had it been the NUP, where people are dying and so on, they probably would have raided our party headquarters, closed them, rounded us all up, and that kind of thing. But people have died in several districts. I'm yet to hear of those to be held responsible. Blood has been shed. So we are yet to see people being held responsible.
They will tell
Maybe you think that's too small a thing.
No, it is not. But
and
they will
for
tell
me, that's
story.
what makes it important. Forget that this is the NRM situation, yeah? The fact that lives have been lost, it bothers me as a leader, but importantly as a citizen. I would not care if they were saying we are being rigged and so on. I've been seeing ministers crying.
You can be sure.
And so on.
You can be sure that when I get NRM on this chair, where you are, I'll put those questions to them without mincing my words.
Yeah, that doesn't stop me from talking about it.
Because they are not here. So,
well, it doesn't change the fact that people have been killed.
Well, that's true. We shall ask them the question of why that happened.
Actually, me, I'm more interested in asking our security outfits, why is no one being held accountable? Why?
NRM for tonight. It's
No. Patrick,
yes.
This is not an issue for the NRM.
I agree with you entirely.
It goes beyond. It's a question of the state, the security outfits, police, and so on. Me, I am saying, so I'm using this platform to say, I would like to see people being held responsible. The same way we asked about Yasin Kauma, who was killed in Arua. Up to now, no one has been held responsible. November 18th and 19th, people were massacred in 2020 on our streets here. Up to date, what the government did, they sent some, 5-10 million shillings, cater for the burial expenses and so on. Do you know anyone who has ever been held responsible for those killings? That has got to stop. So you would think that I should be happy that people are fighting in the NRM and dying. As a leader, I'm saying...
We actually expected that when you went to Parliament,
to
probably you could have used those platforms to make them respond. So some of these...
And we haven't?
Why have they not responded? Why have they not given you what?
Yeah, and that's why we don't stop
because you're
demand for those answers.
You're part of the government.
Yeah, all of us are.
So now, by the way, people are questioning why the delegates conference was more or less like closed off. Why wouldn't you allow the cameras in so that everybody see what's going on?
Well, the cameras were there, captured the start off, and then eventually we gave them feedback about what had happened. A delegates conference is, in many ways, a home sitting together to say, okay, let's deal with many issues within our home. And there's many issues, by the way, that we're dealing with at that delegates conference.
Is there something to hide?
Not just, but everyone knows the outcome of that delegates conference. So how do you say we hid anything? Because afterwards, as spokesperson myself,
because
I did address the media to tell them, so we have had these elections, so and so has been elected to this position, and so on and so forth. But there's many other issues that we're dealing with internally and so on. And so we said, let's sit and deal with all that we need to deal with. But the critical element that people need to know, okay, so now mandates have got to end, new mandates have got to commence. The people need to know, so you cannot hide that, and that's why eventually we told them.
Yeah, but of course, if
so and so's mandate has been renewed, there's a new person.
If there were neutral people to see how that process was going on, Joel, that would have given you more credibility than it did.
It doesn't make any less
because you, when you came around, you looked at people who were doing things in the open, things like like so transparent. So for you to have a delegates conference and then some sections are closed off to the media and you only come to report, that does not give you credibility, does it?
That's not true, because like I'm saying, everybody knows what did transpire, because we did come out and spoke to the media and told them this is what has transpired. So like I'm saying, we said, let's sit as a home, deal with all that we need to deal with, but then there's what the public has got to know. You cannot hide that. If up until now we had kept that secret to ourselves or that kind of thing, you'd be raising concerns. But what's important is even you know what did transpire, because we are the ones who told you. So there's nothing wrong with that.
So if I can conclude the issue of the flag bearer, so you'll have a group of people going around and then asking the Wananchi in a particular constituency who is most suited to have the flag, and then from there you'll be able to take your choice. How robust is that team that will be going around? I mean, how believable is it? How do you think the people will agree in it? Because, the beauty with democracy and adult suffrage is that this was our choice, this is a collective voice, as opposed to somebody came and looked around and then they took their decision. Joe, it's going to cost you, won't it?
At least it won't cost us lives, like some of our colleagues have had their situation be. Yeah. Look, whichever process gets to be used, for as long as you don't handle your processes right, there will be ramifications. You seem to make reference to our colleagues on the other end, but I've told you that people have died. People have been brutalized, including today they were holding, other processes of their primaries. So whichever process you get to use, if you don't handle it right, it will become a mess. That said, as I have said for the umpteenth time, we wanted a different process altogether. That's why we amended our constitution. We are the ones who amended it. None of you people told us to amend it. None of you said this is not good, change this. We are the ones who said, look, we want better. So we sat and we did better. But that process has not concluded because the Electoral Commission has got to eventually gazette that new constitution. They haven't done that because there are some people who are challenging it. We said we are not going to be hamstrung by that situation. We'll keep moving. So you can see that from the onset, we wanted a different process altogether. We wanted better. That's why we sat and amended our constitution to go that direction. But it has still been cut short. Do we sit and cry? Do we sit on our laurels and say, well, let's give up on this situation? We said, no, we'll work with what we have.
Okay, there have been so many programs you started. One of them was the countrywide tour that you had wanted to do. Of course, I think you didn't conclude. So let's look into your program. How did that, what was the impact? How far did you go?
There's been challenges with many of our activities. We had the first round of the countrywide tour, which was largely successful, albeit with disturbances from the security outfits. They would come, beat up people, tear gas, and so on. And we would tell them, but everybody else is holding their activities. What's your problem with us? Why are you angry that people love us and embrace us a great deal? Why is that a problem? On this second round, they kept frustrating us at every corner. We would hold meetings. We'd go to Naguru and meet police leadership there. They would say, you see, the problem with you guys is you hold possessions. And we said, we went with pictures of NRM leaders holding possessions. We said, how come you don't stop these guys? So if you're saying possessions are bad, and they shouldn't be a problem because you're moving, it's a political season. So if we have our venue within a particular district, and we say, okay, when we get into the district, of course people will come, to receive us and so on. Then we move with them to the venue of our rally. What's wrong with that? And we said, okay, assuming that's a very terrible thing to do, how come other political players do that and you say nothing? And the police leaders looked at us. We said, please do answer us. Because what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. So anyhow, there's been all those run-ins with security outfits. There's been numerous challenges. Even to the extent that at our party headquarters, a number of times holding activities there is very convoluted. You have seen the military, they'll come, beat up people and so on, close up and say you'll not access. And they're saying, but these are our party headquarters. You don't want us to, is this a sin of crime? Is it, what exactly is your problem? Anyhow, they do all of these things to slow us down, to cut our speed, but we keep moving nonetheless.
So how do you intend to go about the hurdles that you made? Because it's the same players you're meeting, it's the same tactics they are employing, they have. In fact, they are also gaining experience on how to handle you. I wonder whether you're also gaining experience on how to wiggle yourself through.
In South Africa, many years ago, when the Nelson Mandelas, the comrades with him were fighting for the stoppage of apartheid, it seemed like a head-banging project for them. These guys were locked up for donkey's years, but they kept pressing on. In the Western world, when blacks, especially black communities, were fighting against slave trade and other ills,
yes,
it was a very challenging situation for them. They could have chosen to give up, but they kept pressing on. We can choose to give up, but we shall not. Does that mean it's not challenging? Of course it is challenging. We have lost people. We have many who are still in jail to date for donkey's years. Many are nursing injuries and all of that. But you don't give up.
Are there milestones you see in the last 5 years, especially over 50 members of NUP who are in parliament and the other leaders you have in the councils and other sections of leadership, that you think, well, in the last 5 years, this we have achieved, this we've done, this we stand out?
I'll tell you what for me is the biggest achievement in the last 5 years. The fact that we have got an awakened population, that some of the sections of our society who hitherto had been seen as second, third class citizens, non-stakeholders, they have come on board to realize that they are stakeholders too. The ghettos, for example, the ghetto youth. You have seen now Mr. Museveni does not leave the ghettos. Either he's there or he sends Damulira or there's a Major Kutesa and others. You know, they're in the ghetto pumping billions of shillings there. But for a long time, they didn't even think these ghettos existed. Why? They didn't care. But we have told those ghetto people, you matter, you're stakeholders. And so they're rising up to challenge status quo, and they're pumping billions therein. Mr. Museveni was in Kawempe last week, I saw on the news, on your news here. He said something that baffled me. He said, you Kampala leaders, executive director of KCC and so on, how come people are living in slums? Why are people living this way? I don't know that you saw that. I hope you did, because I did here. I said, wait a minute, Chief, you have been here for 40 years. You've been in charge for 40 years. How can you say you don't know the happenings in your capital city? Either he's being pretentious, which he does a great deal of the time, or number two, that he's just out of touch, which is very possible, that gets out of touch, becomes clueless about the happenings. Yeah, which is very dangerous for a leader, especially when you've been around for 40 years. Anyhow, I'm saying that these people now realize, no, we matter too in this equation. And other ordinary folks, you know, artists whom they used to say, those ones are just singers and so on. Now every year, billions of shillings are sent to artists. Why? Because we told them, guys, you have got a powerful talent, use it to better society. So now in trying to quieten them, they are doing that. Some people have blamed us and said, but now, the coming of NUP, many people who don't seem suitable are coming to join politics. They're running for office. And I said, but that's a good thing. What's wrong with that? Who tells you politics should just be for the elite, the very highly educated, and so on? And look, I'm all for education. Every so often I go back to school to add value. And I encourage those who have the opportunity to go and add value. But leadership is not just about being very highly educated. And that's why many educated people have run down our country. They falsify documents, they are stealing taxpayers' money and so on. So it's not right to say you cannot participate in this thing. So anyhow, like I was saying, I think that what I can point to as the biggest, and there's several things, you know, some could even be seen as small, but they're important too, that we have got the best home in this country among political parties. Yes, we do. In the 5 years we have been around. You can even compare us to those that have been around for 40 years. They cannot compare. And the home is important because that's our launch pad. And not just the one at Kavule. We have got a school of leadership at Kamoja. We have got regional headquarters and sub-regional homes, headquarters. Some we rent, pay rent on a monthly basis. Some we own, our own. Yeah. All these are important because those are your launch pads, your connection places and that kind of thing. Yes, we do have leaders at various levels, in parliament, local government, and so on and so on. All those are the different achievements. But for me, I think that the biggest achievement has been to get people awakened to realize that you all matter in this equation. As a ghetto youth, as a poor person, uneducated, or whatever the case might be, you matter. So you can even stand for office. If you don't stand, it's okay. You can support whoever you want to support, or that you can speak out and hold leaders accountable.
How about the legislative agenda? Mm-hmm. How about on the legislative agenda? What have you been able to achieve? You think, okay, as far as we're concerned, we have supported this law. We have government has done this program, and this is our own direct, impact because we brought this to the House.
For the most part, we are fighting back and pushing back against bad laws that are brought by government, the UPDF Amendment Act, Coffee Bill, and several others, and so on. I told my colleagues that when I took leadership, I said, for us, we'll keep playing our part. Our role in that house is to keep the government in check. That means we point out the ills. We criticize the ills that are happening. This is wrong, this is problematic, we unearth this, and so on. And that we keep doing.
But the laws are passed anyway, that are not as good as you said.
Before you diverted me, I was saying that's our cardinal role. And I said, while we criticize, let's not stop at that. Let's offer alternatives. Let's offer the options. And we have been doing that through our minority reports. We release an annual alternative budget, and then we release it to the country and we say, okay, so this is what they have passed because they have the numbers, but here is our alternative. Here is what is ideal. Here is what can better our society, our country, because that's important. And so we do not only criticize, and that we do because it's our duty to point out all the ills, all the diabolical messes that government people do. But in addition to that, we offer the alternative. We say that this is wrong in this sector of education. This is what is right. Pay all teachers well, not just the arts teachers, I mean science teachers. Yes, it's good you have upped the pay of science teachers, increase the pay of arts teachers too. Increase the capitation grant. You know, and all of these things, by the way, are in our alternative ministerial policy statements, which are very important. And I always, you know, to near harassing of my colleagues to make sure we beat the deadlines, have all these documents ready and so on, because it's important for the country to know that these guys, they have a direction where they are taking us. And so that's important for us to do.
Honorable Joel Senyo, Leader of Opposition in Parliament, hold on to your points, sir, because we're going to take a break, and on the spot, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amar. My guest tonight is the Leader of Opposition in the Parliament, the Honorable Joel Senyo, and we are discussing the journey of National Unity Platform in the last 5 years, ever since they are able to come second in the general election of 2021. You know, so what we are getting into the election, and I'm sure, including yourself in Nakao and others, you're going back to the field to try to dazzle Ugandans, ask them for the mandate to lead. The NRM party, which won in 2021, I'm sure now they are looking at you, they are like, bring them on. We can beat them, we have ever beat them, we have ever you know, won them, we can win them again, we have a formula to win these guys. I'm sure they are in a comfortable position because now they know you. But then, Nupo, people power was a different animal. Does that concern you that now you're dealing with somebody who understands you perhaps better than before?
And we understand them better too. You've talked about them having a formula which they use to win elections. That formula is clear to all and sundry. We saw what happened in the last election. People were killed. Rigging did happen. Brutality, the intimidation. You see, even in the past elections, by the way, and there were Supreme Court decisions on that, saying, look, there's been rigging, brutality, and so on, but all the same, will not nullify the election so that the country keeps in order according to them. But anyway, that's their formula, and that's why we have got to keep pushing back against that. It's not easy, and that's why for us, we are saying we want that power to return to the people. And that's why we said we are going to use the law, unlike our colleagues who went to the bush, blood was shed, and so on. Because how you take power, Patrick, is how you maintain power. If you take power brutally, you use brute force to maintain that power. And that's why for everybody that comes up to challenge this system, this establishment, they are met with brute force. Because that's how they took power. So on our end, we are saying, let's awaken these people so that they realize power belongs to them. And then they fight for that, their power.
But Joel, there's no doubt in the 2021 election, you performed extremely well in the central region, and if I can be exact, in Buganda and some parts of Busoga. And now your opponents are beginning to paint you as a Buganda-centric kind of party or entity, which may not be the case. How do you disentangle yourself from this branding that NUP is Buganda-centric?
Firstly, we have no apologies for wherever we won, for winning wherever it is that we won. Because even where we were not declared winners, you all saw what the election was like. And by the way, it's just that, and I was in the media for a very long time. the media is also concentrated here, and not much is known what happens deep in the villages. That people will show up at a polling station and they are told, we have already voted here, or you go back home, or we have voted for the president, you have the ballot for the MP, go and vote. And then you'll find polling stations where the NRM candidate is getting 110%. What do I mean? They have garnered more votes than the registered voters at that polling station. How does that make sense? At all. That not only did you get 100%, that everybody showed up, nobody fell sick, nobody died, they all showed up and they all voted for you, but that there was bonus. That happened a lot in the upcountry places.
Yes, because even the Supreme Court mentioned electoral malpractice that happened. But I travel quite a lot. In most cases, I go to my village in Ngezi most Fridays. I hope I'm going tomorrow. And sometimes I go to northern Uganda. And when I'm on the road, I start seeing the NUP brand disappearing as I move out of the central region. And I have some friends of mine who are NUP members. For example, there is an engineer Innocent Natukunda somewhere in Mavera, formidable guy. There's a Georgia Musabe somewhere in Kenjojo, wonderful guy. There's, I think, a Davis Wamhumbu somewhere in Fort Portal, wonderful people. But then you don't see other people around them that they are working with them. The lone soldiers here and there in the western northern Uganda.
So, even recently, here, where there's all your lenses and all the focus, you have, for example, been seeing what's happened to posters of a couple of our candidates being torn to shreds, being pulled down, which is illegal, by the way. I've seen that police arrested some young people saying these ones, they tore down NRM posters. They said, hey, but they are, first of all, we are yet to see that evidence anyway, but here is glaring evidence of these guys pulling down posters here where everybody's alert, where your cameras are, and so on, and you guys have showed some of these things on air. As I said, of course, as you keep going out of the city, that attention lessens. So even where there will be a poster, it will be pulled down. We struggled, by the way, with that a great deal in the last election. We would put up posters deep in villages and so on. By the following day in the morning, you find they have been pulled down. And then we would spend more money putting others and that kind of thing.
So your submission is that
part of the
your
problem.
posters
Just
in
listen,
Bundubujo and whatever have been pulled down?
That's part of the problem, because it's a reality that does happen, yeah? We know for a fact that we need to keep striving to penetrate the upcountry places, difficult as it is. That the police and military will not allow you to get to those places. In the last election, we had some excited RDCs. There are some fellows who overly get excited and they have this, exaggerated sense of self-worth. So the fellow thinks I am an RDC here, so I'm very powerful. Some RDCs declared, Honorable Chagulanyi will not enter my district. And we said, oh, how does that get to be? Because we have got a campaign roadmap which was agreed upon and approved by the regulator, the Electoral Commission. On this day, we are meant to be in this district. But another DC says you will not enter. So as you're entering, tear gas, beatings, and all of those different things, that's how hard it is in the upcountry places. Yeah? Does that mean that we should not keep trying to penetrate? Because the support is there. That's why they don't want us to access there. In the last election, in Mr. Museveni's backyard, the day we were meant to be in that area, they moved around, gave young people T-shirts, yellow T-shirts, and they gave them some, some banners insulting us and all of that. The moment we got there, they threw down the banners, put off the T-shirts, and they put on the T-shirts that we gave them. That story was aired even here on NTV. That shows you that the support is there, and that's why the regime keeps trying to make it difficult for us to get there. So yes, I do admit we've got to keep pushing back to get there, difficult as it is.
So, but you think your message has been able to resonate with the people in far-flung places of Uganda? Is it because you think you have a fertile ground for you to be able to have people who are going to follow you, or is it just because your efforts have been stifled by government, by the NRM, and that's why you are not able to cultivate, to grow support in areas far away from Kampala?
Look, the whole of Uganda is ripe for change. The whole of Uganda. And that's why the regime uses the brute force everywhere. Because, look, if our message was not popular, they would give us a free rein to easily access these places, go without any hassle and that kind of thing. But they know whenever we get there, the population connects with us. Every part of the country we have gone to, you've seen what's happened. People embrace us, they come and they throng and, listen to the message. That's when it is allowed to happen. But many times it is not. And the reason that is the case, Patrick, is because everywhere people are saying, but no, we want better. We want better healthcare. We want better education for our children. We want jobs as young people. We want better infrastructure. We want a better livelihood. And they're saying for the last 40 years, it has not happened. And so they want better everywhere in this country. And that's why the state uses that brute force.
And the NRM is telling them that you have to settle for the best and pick NRM.
Yeah, so if they will easily settle for that which you're calling the best, why don't you let the others also take their message, and then the people will settle for what you're saying is the best. But they know that everywhere people are saying, no, we are tired. That's why they'll crack the whip so hard to say, you guys cannot access there and so on.
So are you walking into this election of 2026 with your head high that you are in it to win it, the presidency, and a bigger parliamentary majority?
We are in it to make sure we clinch every position. That's why we are going therein. And that's why we want to front candidates on every elective position.
Will that be possible?
That's what we are working towards. We know what the regime is ready to do. We know in the last the youth elections.
It is highly likely, and this could be.
But now you've asked a question, you've not let me answer it.
Okay, go right ahead.
I was going to say, in the just concluded youth elections, many of our young people got nominated, and they got the stamp of the Electoral Commission. So on the day of voting, they show up, and then they're told, your name is not on the register. And the fellow says, but when I came to be nominated, I was in the register. And you approved and stamped saying I qualify, because to qualify you must meet the minimum age requirements, you must be in the register and so on. Now on voting day they are not there. Now those are some of the things that we have got to deal with, but you push back nonetheless.
You know that quite a number of people actually thought that election for the interest groups was an NRM party affair. Some people across Uganda. That is how so much the NRM brand, you may say you either using state resources or it is fused with the government is, that some people were like, no, we are not going there because that's an NRM thing.
Incidentally, it has been that way for many years, until when we came on the scene, we said, wait a minute, why should it be this way? We told and encouraged young people, go and participate. In the past, people would be told, you young person, you have won, you're the chairman of this village. Oh, okay. And business would continue that way. When we got on the scene, we said, but no, let's encourage young people to participate. And we won many youth leader positions, including this time with all the brute force and the manipulation that did happen. And that's why they used all the treachery that they did, because we said we are going to participate. This is not an NRM affair like it had always been. I'm sure even for you, back then, because you have been around for some time, I know for sure. The youth elections were not an issue. Everybody would wait for the general elections. That was the big deal. But there were all these processes, all these special interest group elections. Now it is an issue because we have said we are going to participate. Yes, they'll beat our young people, they'll rig them out, they'll strike them off the register and so on. Why? Because we have said we have got to be part of this conversation. You're not going to have it easy, and that's important, Patrick.
Let me read for you a message that has come from somebody called Sembusi Ivan. Sembusi Ivan, I think you're somewhere in Kawempe area. You say, good evening, Right Honorable Joel. I want to inform you that I saw your party as the right one to challenge or contest General Museveni. My message to you is that I disagree with you because you have failed to come out and condemn immoral behaviors like hate speech, abuse, inciting, derogatory, and what I know is that such immoral behaviors will not help your party to win hearts and minds of those who need peaceful transition, like religious leaders, cultural leaders, elders, and former national leaders, because as you know, politics is a game of numbers and ideology. This is a message from Sembusi Ivan. What do you tell him?
I want to appreciate Ivan for the support he has expressed and the belief that he has in us. He has pointed out a critical issue, hate speech. We have for donkeys years been talking about this matter. on our end, we have said, including our party leader, the Honorable Kyagulanyi, has severally said, look, if you're somewhere, I don't know in which country or wherever you might be, whether in Uganda or in the diaspora and so on, and there's some stuff that you want to say that does not connect or augur well with us, first put off our paraphernalia. Put off our beret, put off our paraphernalia, excuse me, say what you want to say, so that you don't say it in our name, yeah? Because you might not have control over everybody. But as leaders, we have always said, look, this is how we move. And that's why, yesterday I was at court. A young man called Noah Mutwe was granted bail, something that we have strived for a while, and eventually it came through. We are doing the same for others. Hopefully they do get justice. Noah Mutwe and others, there's a young man called Madubala. He became a TikTok sensation. He was selling shoes. He would wear them around his neck and so on. And so he was locked up. Why? Because he insulted General Muhoozi. And there's many who are in jail for apparently insulting General Muhoozi and members of the First Family and so on. And by the way, for starters, the Supreme Court has, on occasion in the past, had its view on these matters. I'll not dwell on that. Let me just dwell on the principle of equality within the law. So, for you, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, because you were a son to Mr. Museveni, you can go on rampage, abuse everybody on social media. You will cut off your neck. You will beat your head. You will. You have a big nose. You are very stupid. Then he will describe the shapes of women and so on. Insult this one, insult the other. Other times his father has had to go and apologize on his behalf. You know, as a parent, I'm a parent. You are a parent. You know, sometimes your child does some ridiculous things, and you've got to go to the neighborhood and say, please forgive me. On behalf of my child. He had to do that in Kenya. He had to say, please forgive me for this, my, bad-mannered son. And so I said, where is the equality here? If this guy can go on rampage and attack and abuse all of us, when young people respond to him in equal manner, they are locked up. How? When is he going to have his day in court? Now, am I saying that's how we should operate? No, that should not be our modus operandi. I'm not saying abuse back and that kind of thing. I'm only now looking at
but that's what you have
equality
said,
within the law.
That's what you have stated, actually.
Because you have chosen to listen to that, I am asking a legal question here to say, why is it okay for somebody whom, by the way, we expect better of, because you're a leader, regardless how you acquired that position, he's the Chief of Defense Forces. You hold a leadership position. We expect different from you than even an ordinary person. So it's okay for you to insult people. When they insult you back, they've got to be arrested. That's preposterous. It goes beyond if the abuse or whatever, and so the issue goes beyond just that, to say, okay, if you're saying those who are abusing others,
we also say
let it be the case for everybody.
I mean, for those who follow you and those who know you as a leader, we also expect better that when they go low, you go high.
And that's what we have done, and that's why we have said severally, anyone that wants to abuse, please put off our paraphernalia. And I'm saying it for the umpteenth time, because we have said it severally. Put off our paraphernalia, so that you don't be seen to speak for us. I'm the spokesperson. No one else should be speaking for us. So anyone that will put on our paraphernalia, our beret, and then abuse this one or whatever, they're not speaking for us. And we have told them, put off our paraphernalia. But I'm saying, while you're locking up young people who are saying, for us, we're not going to pick up guns to go and fight. We are going to use our social media to criticize leaders, and then of course sometimes they will add this word or the other and that kind of thing, because they're saying this is the weapon that we have. We will not pick up guns to shed blood. Yeah? So now as a leader, you should do better yourself. Talking
about the people who have been locked up, there are prominent NUP members who have been locked up, and so what is their status now?
We have young people, a group of the Machetes, the Kalanzis, and others, who have spent nearly 5 years now in jail, having been sent to jail by the General Court Martial. There was a ruling by the Supreme Court of the land to say civilians have no business going before military courts. Up to now, they are still in violation of that. We saw what happened in Parliament. These guys, because, and that goes to show you for the pressure that they'll keep, whether it be bringing laws, coming up with this because they are targeting NUP. this bill was clearly targeting us. How do we make sure we keep locking these people up? Trumped up charges to say, you have found rounds of ammunition in your house. Excuse me, we have found a gun or whatever. And then people get locked up. In December 2020, the group of the Nubian Lees in Kalangala were rounded up, over 30 of them. They were arrested, and then the charge sheet said that around 8th of January, they were found, all of them with 2 bullets, 2 rounds of ammunition. But they were arrested on 30th December. But you're saying they committed the offense 8th January when they were in jail. Anyhow, all of these are tools that they'll use to try and hamstring us, persecute us, and all of those different things. So these young people have been persecuted. And so government said, okay, that's why, maybe we'll talk about it. I saw Honorable Mao at some point, he said, I'm joining government to fix these things. How did they fix them? They coerced young people, the Olivia Lutaz, to say, if you want to leave jail, you sign conceding defeat, conceding that you're guilty. But there are young people, the Machetes, the Kalanzis, they said, yes, we want to get out of jail, but with a clean name. Why do you want me to accept having committed a capital offense? Yet I didn't. It's been 4 or 5 years. If you have evidence, bring it in court to pin me down. And that's what the young people are saying. And of course, there's several others, the Eddie Mutwes, who, we're still waiting for their day in court, for their bail hearing, and a plethora of others. Have you seen Eddie Mutwe lately? In what spirit? Yes. He's still nursing injuries because Mr. Museveni's child, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, kidnapped him, took him to his basement, beat him up, and he gloated about that. The things that are done in the quiet, in the dead of the night, in the silence, and people get to know. This one did not wait for people to find out. He said, I'll show you what I'm doing to this guy. Took pictures of him naked, with bruises, being tortured, and I don't know, maybe it gives him a thrill. Sometimes I think that it's a condition. That's what I think, because how can a normal person, a normal human being, be that way, especially when you are a leader? There are things we used to watch, back then I used to watch movies every once in a while, and there are people who used to relish torturing others, people would kidnap girls, rape them, and that kind of thing in a movie, and so they keep doing that severally, and it gives them a thrill. I think that's what is wrong with this guy. You think he has a condition? I don't have any other way to explain it. Because how does a normal human being... You think he's sick? I think so. How does a normal human being... Well, I don't... Really, how does a normal human being... You kidnap somebody, if he has committed an offense, take him to court. But no, you take him to your basement, beat him up, take pictures of him, show to the world you're gloating about it. You must be sick. Is there anything as a parliament you could do to put the record straight and maybe remove some of the things? Because as parliament, you're the guys, we give them money. You could just say, you know what, if this is happening, we do the appropriation, we're not giving you money. Or you can use, there are so many leverages you could use. That parliament where I sit, I think is part of the bigger problem, really. If it was not part of the bigger problem in 2000, and I'm not just talking about the 11th parliament. Of course, yeah, probably for the 11th parliament, we have taken it a notch higher. But you see, for donkey's years, if that legislature was really for the people, in 2005, they would not have removed term limits because they were bribed, members of parliament at the time, 5 million shillings each, to remove term limits. We saw what happened in 2018, 2019, the removal of age limit. Members of parliament, including NRM folks, they went to their constituencies and people were telling them, please don't touch the age limit article. But they still came and did it. You saw what happened with the coffee bill. People were saying, please leave our coffee alone. UCDA might not be a perfect entity, but at least it's present. It helps to regulate, negotiate better pricing and all of those different things, standards and so on. They chose not to listen, and that's why they sent the military into parliament to beat up MPs. So in your view, where would they help? The UPDF Act, if parliament really was for the people, our vision is, it's laughable, God help us. Our vision is to be a people-centered parliament. That's what we aspire to be. Really? But you're passing laws and people are saying, no, we don't want that law, it's bad for us. But you insist and do it. So are you saying you cannot whatsoever persuade
the other members across the aisle to see your views and side with you? Never. The power of a persuasive argument cannot work.
We do endeavor to do that. I gave you the example of the coffee bill. We had a number of them actually who stood with us. And that time when we pushed back, I quoted the laws for the speaker and I said, okay, there's a stalemate here, let's do a division. And so a number of them came to join our end, and so we stole it for that day. They were all summoned to State House. I don't know what happened. They came back saying different things altogether, speaking in tongues. And that's the situation, unfortunately, that people will be whipped and panel beaten to follow a particular direction. And by the way, we do engage with a number of them off the cameras, you know, away from the house, and they are also bothered about many goings on. And then you tell them, but why do you keep quiet? Why do you vote otherwise? You see, it's complicated.
You feel a sense of frustration.
That's the situation.
That, you know, you're sort of stuck in one place and things are not changing. Parliament is not helping. It's supposed to be the other arm of government that has an impact, but there's no impact. But there you are, and you sit in it, and you are a very big person in that parliament.
Many things are very frustrating in this country, Patrick. I am sure you get very frustrated too when you saw what happened to your colleagues in the Kawempe by-election. You see, in the last election, they were beating us as politicians and political, you know, party supporters. But now they've taken it a notch higher. They're saying even you journalists shall beat you up. Many of your colleagues, you know, some of them have got now lifelong injuries. I'm sure that frustrates you because you're thinking, wait a minute, we deployed these people to go out and get stories. They went to do their job. They were fully branded and so on, and they were targeted simply because of that. That should frustrate you if it doesn't. But being the Patrick I know, I'm sure it frustrates you. So there's many things that frustrate all of us in this country. And that's why we all must work to change that situation.
Every time I meet, you know, a high person recognition from NUP, I always want to ask about the whereabouts or the status or whether you know anything about a man called John Bosco Kibalama and his whereabouts. It's almost 6 years now.
Yes, we do. In fact, we visited him last week. He's ailing. Oh, no, you meant, oh, sorry. I thought you meant Mzee Kibalama, the founder of the party.
The person who disappeared.
John Bosco Kibalama and a plethora of others, Kanata Mohammed and others. Robina Nabanja, Right Honorable, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, said John Bosco Kibalama was arrested. He's in the hands of the state. And that's why, until her grave, the family of John Bosco Kibalama is demanding for answers from her. And the state generally. Because these people were kidnapped in broad daylight, a number of them. As is the case with others who eventually are produced in court. Eddie Mutu was kidnapped, of course, by Mohozi, took him to the basement, beat him up, and so on. While we were saying, where is this man? The first time we got to know where he was is when Mohozi was tweeting, showing everybody what he was doing to him. And that's the script. It's, and that's why every right-thinking Ugandan has got to work towards changing this situation. Even if you belong to the NRM, these things should bother you. I keep using the example of our honorable colleague, the Honorable Paul Akamba. He's an NRM legislator. They were arrested, charged in court, and then court granted them bail. He did not leave the precincts of court. He was not arrested, kidnapped, because arrest is provided for within the law. He was kidnapped by gun-wielding men, took him to God knows where for a day, two. His family was asking, where is our person? Lawyers, where is the man? If you have arrested him, can we know where to find him? That's an NRM sitting member of parliament. And that's why I keep telling our colleagues in the NRM, you guys think you are safe. You are not. Tomorrow you will be at loggerheads with the very system you're working for, and you will suffer that same fate. When General Kale Kaihura was IGP, he worked so hard to dismantle the 48-hour rule. He said, no, we shall hold you for more than 48 hours and continue to investigate against the law. And I hear he's a lawyer too. When he fell out with the state, he was held for days on end. Okay. I saw his lawyer, Senior Counsel Eli Karuhanga, before the General Court Martial pleading and saying, please, my client has been held beyond the mandatory 48 hours. Can he be released? I said, here you are. When you do not protect the law, today, you will need it to protect you tomorrow, and it will be nowhere because you have fought to dismantle it. The Right Honorable Patrick Amama Mbabazi, he was the main proponent of the Public Order Management Act.
And he
fell out with the system. He was one of the first victims. He was on his way to Mbali. The late Andrew Felix Kawesi said, come here. You're the one who enacted this law. So we need to think through these things. You're not safe simply because you belong to the NRM.
Our time is almost out, and I want to thank you. But I just want to pick a brain on the issue of the parish development model, because the president has been trying to move around the country inspecting or trying to monitor how PDM is working. But PDM, to many policy analysts and political analysts, has been a game changer for the NRM, because apparently money has been sent directly to the pockets of Ugandans, and because of that, you are likely to find a people who think the NRM policy on parish development model is quite a big deal, and that is going to be very hard for you to respond to.
Some things actually we don't need to respond to them because people see for themselves. So Mr. Museveni moves around, spends about 2 billion shillings a day, all over the place, and then he will go to visit a farmer who has 2, 3 piglets, some chickens, and he's saying, now this is a success story. Come on, let's be serious. Huh?
If you give,
let's be serious.
If you give a parish somewhere in Wamchunchu or somewhere in Karenga or somewhere in Chawente, 100 million at every parish, that is something, Joel. And if the family gets 1 million in their pockets, that is something for them.
So in your parishes, you have 100 families? Because you're saying it's 100 million shillings, you're saying every family to get 1 million, it betters their lives. How many families are in your parishes where you come from?
There are very many. Of course, there are more than that.
In Nakawa West, which I represent,
yes,
I have some parishes that have 20 to 30,000 people. One parish.
And that's why they are saying in urban centers they should add more money.
Well, they have been saying that for donkey's years, but even if you add it, it will not, it's not the panacea. Because if that were the case...
You really do not think that the parish development model has been such a big deal for the NRM, and when you go to the field, you're going to find people who say, you know what, they sent money direct to my pocket, I'm okay with this, and these are the guys I'm settling for.
But you've been seeing even the rallies he's been holding. People have been coming on the microphone and saying the money you sent doesn't reach us, it is stolen. And they're wearing yellow and they're saying, Mzee, the money you send, the parish development, it doesn't reach us. It's a hoax.
Okay.
You see,
there's another big deal.
Patrick,
there's another big
let
issue.
me finish this in 30 seconds. You see, the challenge is we keep running from one project to another. Back then there was Ntandikwa, Emioga, these women's support efforts, youth livelihood program, and all of that. You start a program, it flops, you start another. It flops, you start another. Why do we keep shooting first and aiming later? That shows you there is a problem. And all of these, by the way, they're not intended to better the lives of the people. No, right. And that's why they just cannot.
The other day I had a discussion with the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, who's also the President General of the Democratic Party, Yonebo Nobat Mao. And it was like, if Noop wants, I should even come and beg to come and play in the iPod. And somehow you are reluctant.
Why?
and the minister is like, if they want me to beg, I come to Kavuli, I will beg. Those are the words of Nobat Mao. Why don't you want to be in that dialogue?
I grew up watching the Honorable Nobat Mao when I was in high school. These are guys who used to sit in parliament and they would wow us. Anyway, life happens. But let me move away from the individual, yeah? And talk about now the Honorable Minister. When the Honorable Nobat Mao was joining Parliament, this is something I've said, several. He was joining government and he said, look, I'm not doing this for me. I'm really doing it for you Ugandans. This is for your good. For me to join government and become a minister. It's not for my good, it's for your good. Why? I'm going to go and convince Mr. Museveni not to run again. In his 80s, just the other day, he picked forms to run again. the Honorable Norbert Mao said, I'm going therein to make sure political prisoners are released and so on. They're still in jail. 5+ years and so on, yeah? He is now throwing the idea of sitting to discuss and, you know, negotiate and all of these different things. Here has been my argument, because the Honorable Norbert Mao is saying that we as NUP, we are not interested in having sit-downs, discussions, bringing our views, because we are saying, okay, you might not like the government, but you come and bring your views at least. Then you can blame them later if they don't listen to your views. They said, but Honorable Norbert Mao, where have you been? I sit in that parliament with him. That's the most structured dialogue place. It is provided for within the law, that we will sit. Our colleagues on the other hand side will bring their views. We bring our views through our alternatives, our minority reports, our alternative ministerial policy statements, our alternative budget and so on, all of which they don't listen to. So I was saying, Honorable Norbert Mao, when you say that for us we don't want to bring our views, we always bring them in the most structured setting in this country, which is the legislature. You don't listen to them. So you cannot blame us and say, well, government is willing to listen to your views. You just don't want to bring them. You don't want to come and sit with us. We always bring them.
What's wrong
in that very house?
What's wrong with sitting in another dialogue, in another platform and dialogue?
and that's exactly my point, Patrick. It's not about that you will change venue. That now you take the discussions from Parliament, take them to State House, take them to Dubai, take them wherever you take them. For as long as the principle remains of, we don't care what you guys have got to say, it doesn't matter where you take these talks. I was in that house during the UPDF Amendment Act process. Honorable Norbert Mao, as Minister of Justice, was one of the proponents of this bill. I told him, Honorable Mao, on the floor, I said, but you're even supposed to be seated this side, because you still lead the party which you say is in the opposition. You know what has happened to you even in the past as a political leader in the opposition. How can you be the one pushing for this law? Anyhow, we told them this law is bad. That was us discussing and all of that. So if he and his government really care about the views of the opposition, that we don't want to sit with them and bring them, why don't they listen to those views on the floor of Parliament? That it will be different if we meet somewhere over a cup of tea and that kind of thing. But away from that, Patrick, the National Consultative Forum that we belong to is provided for legally. It's a creature of statute. And the law says the party in government will nominate the chairperson. The leading opposition party will nominate the vice chairperson. Let parties sit, discuss, and all raise issues. We are always in that platform. We are part of it legally. We nominated the first vice chairperson at the time, Mama Jolie Mugisha, who unfortunately passed on. Then we sent another replacement, Councillor Benjamin Katana, who is there as our vice chairperson. They sit, discuss, talk about the brutality, talk about other parties being, persecuted and so on, and then they pass resolutions. The government representatives say we are going to act on it, and they are never acted upon. So we are part of these processes.
So you're not
actually, we are the ones.
So as NUP,
the Honorable Norbert Mao should not be the ones demand. We are the ones demanding of him. We are saying all the negotiations that happen in the National Consultative Forum, where we belong, act on them. We are the ones demanding you for action. You can't be the one demanding us to, I don't know, we are always there. So what they did was to amend the law to say that now this National Consultative Forum, let it have 2 departments. One department of political parties that do not have members of Parliament, that are not represented in Parliament. The other department for parties that are represented in Parliament, that have MPs. That's where we have got members of Parliament.
All right.
So whatever name you give it, iPod, iPad, iWhat, whatever, it doesn't change the fact that legally we are part of the National Consultative Forum.
So
create, I don't know how many departments and so on.
The long and short is that you're not going to participate in iPod.
We are already participating. Look, iPod is a department of the National Consultative Forum, for which we are vice chairpersons. And so we sit in those meetings. So these are just gimmicks to say, let's create this department and so on. Now Honorable Chagulanyi come, sit with Mr. Museveni, take pictures and so on. The substance should not just be take pictures, then we show the whole world that the NRM government is tolerant and so on. The substance should be in the discussions that keep happening, including, by the way, the National Consultative Forum had a meeting 2 weeks ago. And we were in that meeting through our representative. Why don't they act on those resolutions that are passed? So it's deceptive of the Honorable Norbert Mao to say that for us, we don't want to participate in having discussions, negotiations about our country. We have been, because we are members of National Consultative Forum.
Honorable Joel Sanyonyi, I want to thank you so much for the time you've given us. You always add value to this platform.
Thank you.
And by the way, just before you give us your concluding word, I have a message from, guess who? Ramumbu Davis. He says he's watching live from Fort Portal. NUP is growing despite being harassed by the state. 2021, we only had 10 candidates in the Toro sub-region. Now we have more than 150. Okay.
That's amazing. Salutations to our brother, Ramumbu Davis, and the rest of the teams there, Innocent Natukunda, and then the others, Seplithura.
George Musavi and
Godgo. So
what's going to be your parting shot?
Country. This country is at crossroads. Whether you want to believe it or you don't want to believe it. Some people live in a bubble, and so they'll pretend like all is well, but it is not. And look, there are no safe spaces in a sinking boat. You remember the Titanic? Yeah, some parts, you know, they were submerged much later, but eventually the whole thing sank. Yeah. And then that's the situation we are in. Some people think they are safe. No, you're not. I saw that with the express penalty scheme. Oh, the elite were up in arms. And there was, all of a sudden, the people who would say, well, we don't care about politics and so on. You opposition people, you can be beaten. Those are not our issues, yeah? All of a sudden, now they were up in arms. Why? Because they were being required to pay 3 million shillings per week through fines that we are preposterous. Of course, we did engage and so on, pushed back and so on. I personally wrote to the Minister of Works to say, please, let's stop this. Of course, everybody, different people played their part. People rose up and so on, social media, until government said, okay, let's leave this thing alone. I now saw the other day, Mr. Museveni saying, there are some crooks who are involved in this thing, I'm going to get them. I said, but we told you that already. In Parliament, we had the report which was saying there's an issue here and so on. But the point I was making through that was to say, no one is safe. So even you who might belong to the NRM, you might say, I've got a good job. You might say, all is well for me. Because we have a general governance issue, it will come to your doorstep. If it doesn't come through your loved one being kidnapped, it will come through the express penalty scheme or something else, you know. Or you might be deep in some village. You might say, well, I've got insurance, I'm well off. If I've got an issue and I'm unwell, I'll go to a good hospital. That situation might come your way when you're deep in the village, like our brother, the Honorable Dr. Chris Bariomusi. He was deep in the village. He had to be taken to the nearest health facility, which was not in good shape. Let's all build this country and make it better. Thank you.
Honorable Joel Sanyonyi, Leader of Opposition in Parliament, I want to thank you so much for the time you have given us, and for you, the viewers online, everywhere you are in Uganda and beyond, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. Good night, and God bless Uganda.